Movements panel. We are so excited to have our guests today who all have various movements that they have spread through social media. They speak at a lot of conferences, and then they also have authored different books. So we have some questions for them, and then at the end we'll go ahead and we'll take your questions as well. So I'm going to just introduce the panel, and then we're going to go on and we're going to talk about the first one, which is the edgy movements that they have created. We have Refrance Davis with us, and you can follow her on Twitter at Refrance Davis. We have Valerie Lewis, and she's at IMV Lewis. We have Barbara Bray, and she's at BBray27, and Todd Nesloney, who you can follow at Tech Ninja Todd. So we'll go ahead and start with Refrance. And Refrance, can you tell us a little about edgy movements you're part of, and then also the one that you are currently running?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Of course, my name is Refrance Davis, and I don't know why I just repeated that. But I'm, have been for a few years a part of the Educolor Steering Committee or Advisory Board. I guess that's the better way of saying it. And the more that I started to be within this realm of advocacy, the more that it just really inspired me to continue to push for more voices of students and teachers of color, because these are voices that are most often void in conversations. And one day I happened to see a post by, I think it was K12 IT blog, about top IT blogs in the country around EdTech, which clearly they didn't know what IT meant. They were all like typical people that you see posting about technology, and not one person of color on that list. And I hate lists, but that one annoyed me to the fire, because that happens so many, many times. So I kind of, like most of my passions probably start in a Boxer group. I started talking to some more of our now Educolor EdTech friends, and came up with EdTech Bloggers of Color, which I'm still designing the webpage myself because I was determined to do that. But it is meant to be a hub for teachers who are interested in technology of color to point to their sources, share ideas, a place where people can learn how can I amplify my voice and the voices of my students. And it is, I mean, I started it honestly with a Twitter account. And the Twitter account just, I had people sign up, and it tweets out links to their blogs, and people started following it. And then that has gone to the website itself, which will host podcasts, video shows, and then also blogs, and I will have some dedicated writers as well.
And Valerie, can you let us know about Pass the Scope EDU and the other movements you're a part of?
Absolutely. So Pass the Scope, as just like Refrance mentioned, a lot of things and ideas that come to fruition for me happen within Voxer groups and Voxer spaces. A lot of the teachers that I network with, are educators, are in the EduMatch group. And so a lot of times conversations are just free-flowing. We don't always talk about everything education. And so, between myself, Nicole on here, Sarah, Tatul Natoya out of California, and Derek Larson out of Utah, we were just kind of smack talking one evening and just saying how a lot of times people paint educators as these stiff, boring personalities, as though all we ever do is everything education. And though that might be partially true, we tend to think in that mode, but we're mothers, we're wives, we're husbands, we're fathers, some of us are comedians, some are cooks and chefs, artists. I mean, we have these other realm of talents that we never get to showcase. And so we thought, I think it was Nicole and Tatul talking about a battle round through rapping. and how we could showcase our greatness through that. And we said, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could create a platform in a space where educators can just come, let their hair down, show the amazing things that, one, they're doing in their classroom, but the talents that they possess. And so with that being said, Past the Scope EDU was born. And so from that, the idea, we just kind of refined it and thought about how we could bridge learning, cause learning to become something that, in a sense, goes viral, that catches on, that people don't look at as a burden or a task, but that it's something enjoyable. It's something that we want other people to do. But not just that, but how could we bridge the world? How could we see what other people are doing in their classrooms? And how do we see what people around the world are doing in their classrooms? What does learning look like in a place like Argentina as opposed to what it may look like in Jamaica? Or what does it look like in Ghana? And so with Past the Scope, it's just a quick 5 to 7 minute scope that happens every third Thursday of the month. And educators get to come in and share their perspective on a common theme that we might have selected for that month. So, for example, one month it was, where do you get your creative mojo? And whatever that means to you, you do a 5 to 7 minute scope on it and then pass it to the next educator. And so Past the Scope EDU was born, and now we have a community of about 80 scopers that can scope whenever they like. They could choose to take a month off. They could choose to scope every month. So it's not anything that becomes one more thing on their plate, but a way to connect and learn and grow and just get to be ourselves.
And Barbara Bray, can you let us know about your personalized learning movement and the other movements you're a part of?
Well, I can tell you how I started real quick. I love learning about LaFrance and Valerie. This was wonderful. Thank you. It just seems like we're all doing, I've been around doing this for some time, and I started with the idea that I could transform teaching and learning somehow. I just got frustrated with the idea of our focus on compliancy. And so I first came in the technology door and did a lot with CTAP out here, Technology Assistant Project, and then said, you know, that wasn't working. We couldn't get in unless we did some coaching. So I started a coaching program with my e-coach and worked on that. But even coaching didn't work if the system wouldn't change. So we tried to look at some strategies with project-based learning and said, will that work? Well, that didn't seem to change unless it was all the same early adopters that we were working with, and it wasn't spreading. So about 5 years ago, I met Kathleen McClaskey, a good friend of ours. Julie Duffield from West Ed said, you might want to put your heads together. And so when we did, we came up with some strategies around personalized learning. And the first thing we did was compare personalization, differentiation, and individualization, and that seemed to do it. All of a sudden, that chart we put out has had 5 million downloads, and it's on all the different state websites, and it's been very exciting. We have it translated in lots of languages and everything. But it led to our first book, Make Learning Personal, a course that we did. And what we try to do is get everyone's stories told, just like you were talking about passing the scope. We try to do it different ways. So we have guest posts, we have a Twitter chat. I'm in Voxer too, so we'll have to connect. And some of the things we're trying to do now is look at other ways of system change and working with leadership teams, because we thought, well, it'll come from the bottom up, but unless the system changes, it has to come from all over, everybody's voice. So that's kind of where we are right now, where our new book is coming out next month. So it's called How to Personalize Learning. So we've been busy, and I'm excited to be part of this panel.
Thank you. And Todd Nesloney, can you let us know about your Kids Deserve It movement and the other movements you've been a part of?
Sure. Thanks for having me here, by the way. It's great to hear these other women and the great things that y'all are doing, so I'm thrilled to be here. Like Shelley said, my name's Todd Nesloney. I am the co-founder and co-author of Kids Deserve It. It was kind of a movement that we started last summer, actually. I had gone to the National Association of Elementary School Principals Conference in Long Beach, California, and it was one of those things where I was like getting to meet all these people that I had been friends with on Twitter but had never met them face to face before. So I was super pumped meeting all of them. And one of them that I met was a guy named Adam Welcome, who at the time was a principal in California. And we were just talking. He was giving me a hard time about not blogging enough because he is like a blogging addict. And so I was like, okay, well, he's like, you know what? Let's blog together. That's how I can get you blogging more. Because I would blog like once every other week or so. So we wrote a blog together, and it was so easy and so much fun. And we started talking about our ideas about education and the ways to push people outside their comfort zones, but do it in a place that's always a place of encouragement too. And we thought, you know, we feel like we really have the same vision for things. And then he was like, you know what? He's like, this phrase keeps coming to my mind on everything we talk about. He's like, I just keep having this phrase of kids deserve the best from us all the time and deserve us to do these great things for them. And he was like, why don't we take that phrase and run with it? He goes, because when you bring these great ideas and you bring them from a source of positivity, how can anybody argue with the idea of we're doing this because kids deserve it and we're not allowing excuses or limitations to get in our way? And so we started the whole Twitter, Facebook, all the kind of movement, and then a good friend of mine, Dave Burgess, reached out and he had been trying to get me to write a book for a while with some of the things that I'd done, but it's kind of one of those things that I was like, that's too big of an undertaking. I don't think I could ever write a book. Do I really have something that important to say that would fill a book of something? And so since Adam and I just seemed to write so easily together, Adam was like, hey, let's try to do this. And so a couple months later, we ended up turning in our final manuscript, and now it's a book that's been out since June. And we've got a blog. We have a weekly podcast. We do a weekly Twitter chat. I do a weekly Periscope that talks about each chapter that we're going to be talking about in the Twitter chat that week. We have guest bloggers who blog for us. We try to really get a wide variety of people that are involved in kids' lives, because what started Kids Deserve It as an educational movement, we're not calling it education kids deserve it. It's just kids deserve greatness from adults. And so we now work with different entities and organizations that deal with kids that have nothing to do with education, just because we want a wide variety of people involved. And the other favorite part of our organization, and I know Adam would completely agree as well, is we sell t-shirts, Kids Deserve It t-shirts, like the one I'm wearing today. But what we do is we don't make any money off the t-shirts. We sell them at a complete donation, and so all the money gets donated back to Teachers Donors Choose projects. We've also donated back to send kids to chess tournaments across the country. We donated for bicycles in some African communities that were needing bicycles for kids to get to school and back. And it's been about $9,000 due to educators paying for shirts that we've been able to give back. So it's a whole idea of a movement that's not just about sharing, these great ideas about education. We really want to make sure that we're impacting kids in every way that we can.
Well, I think it's really fascinating how each of your movements are so different, and how passionate that these founders are of their movements, that they're scoping on video, they are authoring books on their movements, they are on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on all of these different ways, blogging and podcasting. And so what I want to ask each of you is, how did you transform your passion into reality? And we'll go ahead and start with Refrance.
Yeah, unmute. For me, because I'm such an advocate for blogging, that I probably blog across many things that people don't realize sometimes, and it's way too much. It just honestly as simple as buying a domain and just saying, let's go for it. I mean, I read Audrey Waters' piece on having a domain of your own a long time ago, and I've really adopted that idea. Within myself, my family, my children have their own domain. One of these days they might want to use it. But then also really promoting for educators to do that, to live in your own name, and to go ahead and do it. We can sit and talk about all day, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. But the reality is that sometimes you never know how things will turn out until you just do it. Which sounds a little bit Nike-ish, but it is honestly the truth.
So have your own domain. And Valerie, Lewis, how have you transformed your passion into reality?
Definitely agree. And I think this probably came maybe a year or two ago, having the conversation. So before we started Teacherpreneur Chat, I believe it was Sarah Rafrons and I on Voxer talking about a space where teachers can brand themselves and grow. So turning my passion into reality, first and foremost, it takes being around a group of educators with like minds. But not only just surrounding yourselves with educators, but being around other professionals in different industries as well. So I attend a lot of meetups and things that happen in the Atlanta area. And so just being able to rub shoulders with business people or people that are in the IT profession. I hear you, Roscoe. or
Came right on.
he came right on. So I think as educators, we have to find those educators that think like we do, but we also have to be well aware of the other people that are in the world around us. And so once you find those people, you'll start to align yourself. So for me, turning this Past the Scope EDU, it became very simple. It was just, hey, you guys, let's do this. And finding those accountability partners that believe in the vision and that don't mind getting their hands dirty and doing the work with you and pushing you to become greater than you even thought the movement could be. And so it's definitely where opportunity meets preparedness and taking a leap of faith and kind of jumping or leaping afraid, so to speak. So one thing I know, a couple of you guys know, we're doing that Ed Obstacle movement. That is a big event. So it's kind of like Todd talking about, I don't know what to put in a book to fill up all the pages. I didn't know how to put on an obstacle event to host 30, 40,000 people in like 8 weeks. And I'm like, holy crap, how am I going to do this? So it took finding engineering friends that I met at meetups, graphic designers, people that know how to build websites, getting a solid team of educators that say, hey, I could do this, I could do this, I could do that. So I think once you take that leap of faith and surround yourself with people that are going to do good with you, all the pieces will come into place. And we have to hold on to that mentality. If we don't succeed, it's okay. Just iterate and reinvent and just try it a different way. But do not give up. That's the message we give to our students. Then we definitely can't be hypocrites and not take it for ourselves.
I think that's such great advice. And I know all of you have been part of our movements, Sarah's and I's, and gotten your hands dirty with us. So we definitely appreciate all the work all of you do, because it's not only your movements, but I know you all are very integral in helping other people with theirs. Barbara, how did you transform your passion into reality?
Well, the one thing I found that I love to write, and I like to speak, as you know. And one of the things is telling your story. I felt it was really important for me to tell my story, but also to connect with others and share their stories. And so I've been just blown away by the people and educators and some of the things that they're doing. I mean, Kathleen and I begged people to write guest posts. So we were so lucky when Pernille Rip said, oh, I would love to write. I'm so honored. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she wants to share her story. And then there's so many others. And then we got some students sharing their stories. And so and my thing also is about teachers, helping teachers realize that they are amazing. And sometimes being their mentor, trying to show them, just like Rafron says, you can brand yourself. And so I have several websites. I have my own, barbarabray.net, which I call Rethinking Learning. We have our personalized learning website. I also have my eCoach where people can make their own websites. So if they don't have other options, I try to give it to them. I want to make sure that they're okay about sharing their stories and what they're doing, because what happens in their classrooms and what how they're changing lives, it's making a big difference. And so I've been really lucky too about connecting. So I try to build my PLN with Twitter and do Twitter chats and Voxer groups and be able to share what's happening, but also try to mentor people to come in because it's really hard to take that first step. Some people are afraid, they lurk, but they don't want to post. They're afraid to post, so sometimes giving them a little nudge to help them doing that. So just like Rafan says, it's good to brand, and like you said, Valerie, to the idea of connecting and getting their word out. I think we're kind of all doing it, but maybe in different ways. So I'm excited to hear more stories of what people are doing because I think that's really important.
I definitely think that part about sharing your story is important because that's definitely one of the ways we do connect with others. And I'm so glad all of you have joined us to share your story today. I think we're going to have another panelist join us after Todd tells us how he transformed his passion into reality.
Well, you know, I'm always an all-in kind of guy. That there's whenever I decide I want to do something, it's like some people are like, okay, let's play it all, this little piece and this little piece and this, and I'm like, no, if I'm gonna do the work, let's just do it all. Let's make it work. Let's be awesome. Let's do it all. And when I met Adam, and Adam was totally the same way, which I guess is dangerous to have us two together because we're all, every idea we bring, like, yeah, let's take and run with it. Let's go and do it. And then we're like, how in the heck do we have a life outside of these things? But we do find balance. But with me, it's just kind of that idea of, you know, I do a lot of speaking and I work with my teachers on my campus as the principal, and then I do the blogging and the kids deserve it. And I'm always talking about don't let anything stand in your way. Don't allow anything to be an excuse. Because as educators, we work with kids, and you know, one of the things we have in the book is, you know, we tell kids to come to school and learn every single day. So how dare we as educators not be doing the same thing? And you don't learn if you're not pushing yourself and challenging yourself and making yourself uncomfortable. And so when Adam and I went into this kids deserve it thing, it was scary. It was uncomfortable. It was like, what if this bombs? What if we really don't have anything to say past our first couple of blog posts? But it's that whole idea of living what you preach. And so we wanted to make sure that we are out there pushing ourselves as well. We're not allowing things to stand in our way. We're eliminating excuses. Does everything we do work? No. Some things bomb and they don't work great. And you know what? That's okay because we learn from them as well. And we don't take it as a personal failure kind of thing. It's more of a, you know, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? How can I make it better? And plus, with us all on this panel being connected educators as well, I think one of the powerful jobs that we have is to share our failures in addition to our successes. Because when you share your failures, you're helping somebody else understand that what they're doing when they make mistakes, it's okay too. Because in education, we are extremely hard on ourselves. And we're very much in this realm of, oh my gosh, look at all these other people. They're doing such great things. I did this and it didn't work. Oh, I'm just not as, my ideas aren't great. And it's like, no, every one of us has something great to offer. And every one of us has these ideas that we come up with that just don't work sometimes. And so it's just been great to be able to this passion work out and to see it play out, and then to know that we have even more things planned in the future that some will work and some won't, but we're excited to see kind of where it goes from here.
Well, I think that's great advice, to get uncomfortable and to be the example. And with that in mind, I know passion, sometimes in schools we do definitely talk about passion education. I think it's good to model that, you know, it's not this thing that's easy, which all of you have spoken about today, but it's something that's uncomfortable. It's something that's a long time journey. You've been doing these movements. A lot of you have been part of online your edu movement, you know, 6-7 years or many different years, and it's not just something that just happens. But with that in mind, how has social media helped you share and start your movements? And we'll start with Franz. And I think this is maybe the last question Franz can answer for us, because then she'll have to leave us, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sad about that. But for me, the social media was, I think, a kind of a huge and critical piece. I'll say that. I have a bit of a network, and you know, it's had some positives and negatives, I'll be honest. The positives have been really promoting other people's work, setting up the Twitter account to do it, kind of staying attuned to that. But the back end part of that has been encouraging people to share their work. And that is hard to do, especially when you are used to being kind of slighted in a lot of cases where others aren't. Just saying you should share this or we need to be more visible in this space isn't enough when you're often in a space in your work where you're told not to. And I've lived that. That was me. In I lived at one of my jobs in the past where I was told to blog a lot less, to say a lot less, and to just be silent and just kind of deal with it. And so many people, especially teachers of color, often hear that. And maybe not in your space, but it happens. And we know it because in our private conversations in Voxer, private as Voxer is, that's a whole other conversation. We hear it and we share it with each other. But we also share triumphs. But we have had instances where people have shared and there has been backlash. And they were sharing really great, amazing things that they were doing in their classroom, but people questioned them. So social media is a positive and negative, and I think the thing we have to remember is when we're amplifying voices is that we can amplify voices, and there's plenty of space in here for all of our voices, and we don't have to minimize someone else to amplify others. And that's been a lesson that I needed to learn because I've made some mistakes in my past. But those are also lessons that we're having to have, deep conversations with these teachers as they take these risks and put their work out there.
I think that's so important that we don't, like you said, that we can amplify our voice, and there's room for lots. And I think that's another reason why each of you has such a great following. You have, anywhere, from tens of thousands to millions, as Barbara Bray was saying with hers. Follow your edu movements. And I think that's something that each of you, and that's why we invited you to be the speakers here, is you do it so well. Each of you is very good about mentoring, supporting others, and not pushing others down, or sometimes I feel we have this competitive spirit, and each of you is so great about realizing there's enough room out there for lots of passion and voices. So with that, we're going to go ahead and say bye to Refrance, but definitely tweet her at Refrance Davis. Any questions that you have, we'll be sharing her ed tech movement, and then you can also follow her at Refrance Davis. And next we have Valerie Lewis, and Valerie's going to let us know how social media has helped her.
Yes, so social media definitely, and this is the power of technology. There are people that I would have never met or collaborated with had it not been for social media. When I think about the individuals, Shelly and Sarah and Nicole, and people that I'm interacting with on a daily basis, where would I have met you guys had it not been for Twitter or Voxer? We don't live on the same block. We're not in the same neighborhoods. We didn't go to the same schools. And so the power of social media and technology is just that I'm not limited to just my time zone or my zip code, and I can meet great people. And now, Todd and Barbara, I'm definitely going to be interacting and supporting your movements even more. That's the power of it all. And so we have to allow teachers to be leaders, not because they went to school and got a certificate that said they are, not because someone in their building gave them many keys to many doors, not because of any of those things, but because we're all experts in our own right. We all have something that we're gifted at, something that we are talented with. And so we needed this space or platform to be able to share. And so with the power of Periscope, we find some teachers that shy. They're like, oh my God, I have to be on camera, and people are going to be watching me and seeing me, and they're going to be talking back, and what would I say to them? And just to watch some of these novice scopers jump right in and kill it. their first scope. I'm talking about they look like seasoned veterans. And it's just like when they get off of it, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And just to be able to not do that just for our students, but to do that for our colleagues, because we're only as strong as our weakest link in this profession. And just to think to have an army or brigade of educators that are top notch, that are all rock stars, that is the power of the movement. And then so it goes back to what Todd is mentioning. Our kids don't just deserve the best, but they deserve the best from us. If we're not learning and growing each and every day, like Barbara mentioned, and personalizing our learning and growing professionally, then we're doing a disservice not just to ourselves, but to the kids that deserve so much more from us. And so social media is big in this, connecting us. I don't even have to leave the comfort of my home. And just think about this video and this conference that's happening today with Edu Passions. Just think about how many homes this is entering and the power of the knowledge that we're all getting. So, and I don't want anyone to be offended by this, but like Mr. T would say, I pity the fool who runs away from technology. Like, why would you not want to at least dibble and dabble of it? Don't jump in and overwhelm yourself. Just take baby steps, grow. Get one thing, get comfortable with it, and then learn more. So social media is definitely very important. It's the age in which our students live in, and so we definitely have to utilize it.
That's such a powerful message. And now we'll go to Barbara. How has social media helped you, Barbara?
Oh my gosh, Valerie said everything I wanted to say. It was so fantastic. One of the things that I going to reiterate what she said was how social media has changed my life. One of the cool things about social media is how you connect with people, and you only know them by their Twitter handle, right? You don't know what some of them may even not even, they put an avatar up, and then you go to a conference and they go, oh my gosh, you're Bray 27. Oh my goodness, I love it. And that piece of connecting, especially new teachers that it just got on, and I'll run up to them and I'll say, oh my gosh, and I'll say, you're Jean, and they go, wow, you know me? Oh, that's so cool. And I want them to know that I couldn't do this without them. I'm not teaching now. I'm out there and your advocate. I'm supposed to be there to help you become the best you, and help you help your kids become the best they can be. I can't do that anymore in the role I am in, but my role is as an advocate to nudge you, to support you, to mentor you, and that's what we all want to do for each other. I read Todd's book, Kids Deserve It. I just want to tell you, it just made me smile because I know Adam and I know what you're talking about, and the idea, Valerie, that Valerie is going in and actually going in the classroom and having teachers tell their stories. I'm so blown away, because that's what I want to do, is to find ways that we can all work together, because this is big. I feel this is not just little movements separate. They're all together. We're all talking about our kids and how we get them to become self-directed, independent learners with agency. How do we do that? And we can't do it if we keep on going with the status quo. And because all of us came from this compliancy world where learned helplessness was kind of the mainstream. And I've had teachers say, I want to do this, but I have kids that want to just know what I have to do for an A. So we have to change that, and this is the big movement, and I feel like now is it. It's like this is the time it's going to start happening. And if we pull together, and teachers know that they're not alone out there, because there are teachers that take those risks, but then they don't get the support. That's where social media comes in. They have this community that's PLN, this group of people that are out there fighting for them and talking about them. And I have one, I'm just going to mention her name, is Kristen Hicken. She's Chicken Hicken. She's in Riverside, and she's putting up her first graders and telling their stories on Seesaw and all the things that they're doing. And so I'm sharing it like crazy. And who knows if it's the right thing. But right now, I'm excited that she wants to do these things. And so like I said, and like I want to thank you, I just want to thank Shelley. Shelley has pulled together so many amazing people with each Edge speakers, her goals challenge, and all the things, and inviting me here. I just am so honored that I could be part of this. So thank you, Shelley.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're going to make me all teary-eyed. And Todd, who has been doing an amazing job answering questions in the chat wing as well. So that's really awesome. And we're going to take the question Nicole posted in a little bit. But Todd, how has social media helped you?
Well, goodness gracious, Valerie and Barbara just took everything I would want to say. I mean, they spoke it perfectly. And, I love that all three of us we're like on the exact same page, which shows, from being different parts of the country, having not met each other, and we're all in complete agreement. I mean, it shows really the power that really exists in social media. And I wrote a blog post a few years ago called Social Media Saved My Career, or My PLN Saved My Career, because I think about, there's so many of us educators who are trying to do what's best for kids. We're trying to push boundaries, or we're trying to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones and things, but sometimes we exist in environments that aren't always accepting of that, or we don't have people on our team that are encouraging of that. I remember I was doing something and it was so cool and the kids loved it, and I had 3 teachers come up to me and they were like, seriously, why are you doing this? And I was like, it's so awesome, the kids, and they're like, no, not everybody's going to have to do it because it's actually working, and it's one more thing we're going to, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's kind of one of those, I just want to close my door, be with my kids, ignore everybody else, do what's best, and it was very defeating. And no matter how positive you are or how great you are at what you do, when you hear enough times that stop doing that, quit doing that, it begins to just really eat at you, and you're like, well, why am I doing this? Well, is this really where I'm supposed to be? And you just can't take that much beating without having people that encourage you as well. And social media is what did that for me. It helped me find other educators who are also trying to do exceptional things all the time, or trying to, and they were willing to push me and challenge me, but also encourage me. And I think about, it's funny that I go to conferences and stuff, and my wife gives me such a hard time because she's like, you're going to room with them, or you're going to go out to dinner with them. You've never met them before. And I'm like, it's okay. I talk to them all the time. It's totally cool. I can honestly say that the 5 people in my life who are my best friends, none of them live anywhere near me, and they're people that I met on social media that I would have never met in real life. And then I look at Kids Deserve It. Adam and I never met in real life until Long Beach a year ago. 1 year ago. And now we have a whole movement and a book out and everything that we wrote collaboratively from California to Texas, because we're not even in the same state. Adam and I have only met after that like 3 or 4 more times. And that's because I've flown to California every time. I always tell it. Adam doesn't come to Texas, but I always come to California. But it's crazy because it's like you can do these exceptional things and make these friendships and these people who, I think of the things that I've done in my career, none of them are a reflection of me. It's ideas that I got from talking with others. And then the fact that I got to meet the president, it's things that's like, did that really happen? But it's because of sharing our story completely online and showing my kids' stories and letting them have a voice. But also, like Franz talked about earlier, giving a voice to those who don't always feel like they have one. That's something I've become really passionate about, is finding those people who either don't feel that their voice is valued or don't feel that they have something to say, and reminding them that every one of them does have something to say. And I love that as a campus principal now, I can encourage my teachers to do the same thing, and I can teach them that they have a voice and that their voice matters and that every idea they have matters. And I've got to watch them, a big chunk of them, bloom into sharing their kids' things out online, and it's just so exciting for me to help people find their voice and understand, just like Angela Myers talks about, that every one of them matters, that every one of them has value, that every one of them has worth. And it's not just a conversation for our kids and reminding our students that. Yes, that is hugely important, but it's just as much to remind our adults that as well, because adults are just big kids. And so we have to make sure that, especially campus leaders, you have to make sure that all your focus is not going into the kids. And I don't want you to hear that wrong. Our kids are super important, but equal focus needs to be placed on the adults and the families that we serve as well. And social media allows you connections, just like Valerie talked about, how doing this huge movement. She couldn't have done that without building these connections on social media. What we've done in Kids Deserve It and what I've done in my career, I couldn't have done without being connected to people from all over the world, not just in my state or in my community. So it's definitely something that impacts you on every level. It's terrifying putting yourself out there. Just like Refran said, sometimes you don't get great feedback. And you've got to grow tough skin and realize that not everybody's going to agree with you, and that's okay. As long as you know you're doing what's best for kids and what's best for education, then you can live in the security of that.
And those are some powerful words. We're going to go to the next question and start with Valerie. What advice do you have for teachers so there's a lot of teachers, especially in the chat wing, who are so inspired. And Todd, you were talking about how you heard a lot of teachers who said that, that they don't feel powerful enough, or, their voice doesn't matter. And so what advice can you share with teachers who are now inspired, who feel empowered by what you all are saying? What advice do you have for those who want to start edu movements?
My first advice is go for it. Go for it. Do not listen to the naysayers, and definitely do not compare yourself to anyone else. You'll see other people that may have things similar to what you may be thinking, and you'll go, oh, well, such and such is already doing that, so maybe there's no room for me to do it. Maybe the way you're doing it is going to be a little bit different, and maybe it'll appeal to a different audience as well. So do not compare yourself to other people. The ideas that you have, jot them down. I keep this black book, and I call it my vision book. And you might have seen it on our Past the Scope EDU movement, one of our very first ones. I go beyond the vision board. Think about a vision board as a compass. It gives you a general idea of what you want to do. But this vision book, it's going to be your map. It's going to tell you exactly how to get there. So you're going to get downright and specific. You're going to jot down things that perhaps you'll forget in an hour or two. A name comes across, someone's tweet, or someone, write it down, because what you'll find is in your vision book, you'll begin to start to connect the dots. And slowly but surely, something you've written down, you will connect to someone that you can say, wow, I need to touch base with that person, or I might need to send that person a direct message. And that person may be instrumental in what it is that you're doing. And if you notice, on my vision book, I've got about 6 tabs in there. Each of those tabs represent a different vision that I have. They're all related to education, but they may be different. So write it down. I remember in college, one of my professors said, paper and pencil, never forget, therefore write it down. And when I open this book, sometimes I come across things that I jotted down 2 years ago that I did not develop or did not come back to, and now is the right moment to bring those things into fruition. So if you have something within you, don't doubt who you are as an individual. Never compare yourself to someone else, and definitely write down your plan. Write the vision, make it plain, and just go for it. Just do it.
All right. And I think vision is definitely a part of that, and constantly keeping with that vision. And Barbara, what advice would you add to that?
Well, I was just going to say a notebook. So same idea. But one of the other things is use technology too. If you're online and you're on Twitter or whatever, start collecting the people that you want to connect to, and don't be afraid of following them and reaching out. I've been really lucky because some people now are taking chances with me because I've been saying this, so they not only follow me, they send a message to me because I follow them back, and they go, wow, that was so cool. And I go, well, tell me a little bit about you. And now they're telling me some of their stories. The other is start collecting information any way you can that is around what you love, like whatever your strengths or interests are. So what I tell people is collect, if you're interested in learning about project-based learning, and follow some Twitter lists. You know, they have lists on PBL. I'm really into design thinking now. I just really love the idea of starting with empathy and finding a challenge and things like that. And there's a whole bunch of design thinking lists. So you can go in and follow a Twitter chat, and even if you're lurking in the back, start grabbing information, finding people to connect with. And some people even use things like Pocket to grab resources that you like and build that. So Kathleen McClaskey is my business partner. I'm in California. Like Todd says, he's in Texas and California. I'm in California, and Kathleen's in New Hampshire. We're a little farther. But we do everything in Google Docs, and we collect resources and put them inside different folders so we can work collaboratively. So if you find someone else who's got the same interest, don't be afraid to reach out and try to collect that information with them. I feel it's really important to work together. And one other thing I just want to say, about 10 years ago, I came up with this quote. It said, go with your strengths to find your passion, and then you'll discover your purpose. And that's something that I'm just kind of like, wow, I wrote that. That was pretty cool. And because really, when you find your passion, all of a sudden it becomes your purpose in life. And I mean, I wake up every day kind of excited now because I'm working on something, and I'm listening to Valerie and Todd and LaFrance and going, oh my goodness, we're all on the same path, but we're doing it in different ways. So what you may find is a different way to do it. Don't be afraid, just like Valerie said, and jump in. Be able to tell your story, do it any way you can, and be proud to showcase whatever examples you have, because that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that powerful advice. And Todd, what would you add to that?
Well, you know, I think about a lot of what they said, and then kind of my path as well. And, you know, the biggest advice I have is it's twofold. One of them is don't wait. When you have an idea, when you have something you're passionate about, take it and run with it. And when it comes to an edu movement, like Valerie was talked about, Franz, Barbara, it's things that we were incredibly passionate about ourselves. So you can't take something you're like, oh, I think that's a good idea. Let me go ahead and try to start something with that. If you're not extremely passionate about, it's never going to make it very far. Because what you're going to find is when you try to start a movement with something, it's a lot of work. But if you love it and you are passionate about it, the work is not really work because you're doing what you love. It's kind of like when people look at some work that teachers do and they're like, I can't believe you put in that many hours. I can't believe you went and made all these things for every kid. And it's like, that's what we love. That's what fills our heart. That's what makes us happy. That's why we do it. It's not because we get paid all this money or because we have tons of free time and we can just need to fill our free time with something. It's not that at all. But it's things that make us so. People always ask me, they're like, how can you do all this Twitter stuff all the time and the teaching and the kids deserve it and the speaking? And I'm like, that keeps me fueled. It keeps me going. And the other thing is that, you know, I used to be, and at times I still really am, a very independent person and very much of a, okay, I can do this blog post. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And what I've learned by being a connected educator is that, yeah, I can do it, but I can do it so much better when I let other people in who have the same passion to go alongside of me. And I think about the Kids Deserve It movement that we started. I could have taken and ran with that on my own, but because I let others in to help me and to have an equal voice and to have just as much power in the movement, I mean, it has expanded it, and I've been like, oh, that's a great idea too. I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's brilliant. Let's take and do that. And then it's been so great to have people like Adam and to have guest bloggers and people that we have on the show that just remind me that this edu movements are not anything any of us can do on our own. It's things that we have to find others for to not only help carry the load, because the load is heavy, but also to continually push. People bring different connections to things, and so it allows you to expand and grow even more. So that's my two pieces of advice is if you have something you're passionate about, don't wait till you have a complete plan to make it happen. Jump into it. Take it. Run with it. For me, my best ideas have been ideas that have been on the fly or when I've been in a crunch. And it's like, I need something to fill this. I need something to do this. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, now, oh, here's an idea. I can take that. I can run with it. I can try this. And so I love what they said too about not being afraid to reach out to anyone. I will say the only two people that I have never had respond to me are Oprah and Ellen, but I haven't given up. I'm still working on them. But the best example I always use when I talk about connecting, because I talk to my teachers all the time about don't be afraid to reach out. We've had authors work with us. We've had Olympic and Paralympic athletes, National Geographic, education companies. All these things have done stuff with my teachers and my school because they've reached out. But my biggest example of that is I used to do a podcast series called Edu All Stars. And what we did with Edu All Stars, we were interviewing people who were game changers in education. And we were like, oh, I said, who's the biggest name in education that we could talk to? And one of my co-hosts, Chris Kessler, he was like, well, what about the Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan? And I thought, oh, that's great. I said, I'll just tweet him. And Chris was like, yeah, whatever. He's not going to respond. He probably doesn't even run his own account. And I was like, well, you're probably right. But hey, like we always tell people, if you don't reach out, and when you reach out, what's the worst thing they're going to say? Either nothing or no. And I'm fine with either one of those because then I can say I tried to reach out. Oprah and Ellen, I'm still waiting. Anyway, so I reach out to Arnie Duncan, and within 15 minutes, one of his aides tweeted me back and said, hey, send me an email. Let's talk. We spent the next 3 weeks talking and telling exactly what we wanted to do. Then 2 months later, Arnie Duncan came on our podcast show done by 3 teachers in a tiny town in Texas. We were just on there, and it was his very first Google Hangout. It was his very first interview by teachers, and he gave us 15 minutes of his time, which our show at that time usually lasted about 45 minutes or an hour. But I was like, 15 minutes with the United States Secretary of Education? I'll take 5 minutes. And we got to interview him and talk about different things, and it was such an eye-opening example to me that you can't. Our kids deserve us reaching out to whoever will make things better. Because the worst thing, like I said a minute ago, that they will say is either nothing at all or no thank you. And oh well, move on, find somebody else, because there's always somebody else doing something just as cool, somebody who has just the same kind of resources. It's just all about getting out there and doing it. And I think about organizations like Classroom Champions, which is one of my favorite organizations on the planet. And they're classroomchampions.org. But they connect top-performing Olympic and Paralympic athletes with schools and classrooms for free. And you can go on their website and have all these videos made by athletes that teach your kids about goal setting, fair play, all this stuff. But in addition to that, their athletes will connect with your kids on social media. And I love on Google Hangouts or Skype. And one of our kids, we were having a 5th grade track meet, and I was teaching my 5th graders about always being connected. And one of my 5th graders said, well, if we always need to be connected, why don't we reach out to some athlete to see if they'll talk to us and give us inspiration before our track meet? And I thought, you know what? That's not a bad idea. So we searched for different track stars that were Olympians, and we found one, and we were like, oh, he's on Twitter. So we tweeted him, and then he came and spoke to my 5th graders through Google Hangout before their track meet about how to handle when you don't win, because even though he was a gold medalist, he had not won some things. And how you compete at your best and how you prepare. And it was one of those really cool moments for my kids, too, to go, we just tweeted him, and that athlete came on. And so it's just the only limitations you have are the limitations that you place on yourself.
Well, thank you so much. So we only have about 2 more minutes. So I think all of you have talked about, overcoming rough patches. So we're going to go on to the audience question, which is, how do you sustain your passion projects? And then the other question any of you can answer is, how do you persuade people to join your cause? And I think that was by Mario.
All right, so persuading people to join your cause, you've got to be able to clearly communicate what your cause is. So people have got to understand what it is that you're doing so that they can get an idea and let them decide for themselves if it's something that they want to be a part of. And it's okay if you don't win them all. It's not Pokemon Go where you have to catch them all. You just have to catch the ones that are the right fit. because they are going to be the ones that are going to be most beneficial to you. There's no sense in carrying around dead weight. If they're not going to be constructive and active in what you're doing, then you don't need them necessarily on the team for that purpose. So you don't have to convince them all and catch them all. You just have to be able to clearly communicate what it is that you're doing. And the ones that are interested, they will come. And sometimes they're there just for a moment or a season or just for that phase of your project. And then you'll find that your team may change. In a new phase, there are going to be new people that come in. So they serve their purpose. So to sustain your movement, you have to always be thinking of what's next, getting to the next level. How do I reinvent and repurpose and rebrand? You know, what is it that I need to create that doesn't exist? And so if you're just going to do the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes routine, and then it becomes humdrum. And if the other people are bored, chances are you're going to bore yourself. So you have to be thinking about what's next all the time in order to sustain. And like Barbara and Todd both said, find those outlets that exist that want to support great causes and bring them on board. I think a lot of times with educators, we always think that we must just preach to the choir. We must service each other and ourselves. But when we think about educating the whole child, we must think about a comprehensive look. We must bring in our community leaders. You know, we must bring in people like the Secretary of Education, which is now John King. We must think about those high-profile businesses that may just be in your local community. So if you're not thinking outside of education, then you're going to find that the movements that you create are going to be just another thing. And you don't want that. You know, so think about the kids that you service. What are their interests? I've got a lot of boys. I teach special education. And guess what they're all into? Video gaming. So what did I have to do? I had to find like the Georgia Professional Association of Gamers. And guess what? They're coming physically into our classroom to try to teach kids about gaming and how they can connect gaming to my language arts class and how they might be able to connect gaming to their math class. Don't you think those kids are going to want to get up and get out of bed and come to school that way? Absolutely. And if I periscope that, won't other teachers that live across the water or in other parts of the globe be able to see that happening and maybe do the same thing in their classrooms? Absolutely. So you have to think outside of the box. There are no boxes that exist. We smash boxes over here. There are no boxes. Just go for it. Sustain your idea. Keep it going. You have to be the biggest advocate for what it is that you believe in. As Todd mentioned, if you don't have the passion, it'll die out. So just go for it. Give it a try. Don't give up on you and definitely not on the kids.
Well, thank you so much to all of our very passionate panelists. As you can see, we had the full hour taken. They are amazing, full of passion. They'll go back to the chat box or even on Twitter, tweet them. Join their movements. We want to show Jake wanted to show his Kids Deserve It shirt there. We're part of all of these movements. We love them. They're wonderful. They have their own hashtags, their own Twitter chats. And we'd also like to thank Nicole Taylor for being part of this and really helping us. You didn't see her, but in the background, she's posting questions and doing all of these things in the chat. So we will see you at Nikki's next, and thank you all so much again.
Thanks, y'all.